Judge Gags of Gavel. Good afternoon. Welcome back from lunch. Tampa City Council, call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Miranda. Here. Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak. Here. Young. Vieira. Carlson. Here. Clendenin.
Here.
We have fiscal quorum.
Welcome back. Okay, we are going to talk about noise. Item number 7. Staff, please. There was something wrong with you.
Take that off. That was for the tree stuff. Oh. Good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. If you recall, as an outgrowth of your discussion a couple of years ago on the entertainment districts, Council commissioned a noise study, and we're here today to present the results. We issued a request for proposals in August of 2024, and in 2025, the RFP was awarded to Harris, Miller, and Hanson. HMMH conducted noise studies between April and May, and then again in June. May 7th, we did a kickoff meeting, a hybrid kickoff meeting. Then we did another virtual meeting, 2 virtual meetings in July, one with property owners, one with business owners. And then I attended a couple of virtual meetings with some people from downtown and some from Soho. And today I want to introduce Robert Fink from HMMH. He's to present his study, or not his study, but the consultant study. If it can be brought up on the screen, and I'll turn it over to Bob Fink.
All right. Good afternoon. Am I clicking through this?
There should be a handheld clicker there somewhere.
There it is. And so, oh, I see it. There we go. Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity. As Eric mentioned, my name is Bob Fink from HMMH, and I am the project manager of the City of Tampa Consultant Contract. As you can see, I'm going to present kind of the summary of the document. I know that you all have probably had a chance to read through more of the details, but HMH conducted a noise assessment to provide the recommendations for updates and a modernization of the city's current noise regulations. I bet I'm pressing the wrong button. There we go. And so the background is, as you know, the city has gained significant population growth over the last 10 to 15 years. And with the increase in combined residential and commercial development throughout the city, its increased noise conflicts are inevitable. So the objectives of the noise study were to identify the sources of noise throughout the city, and the identification process was through public survey, stakeholder meetings, and land use review data collection. We implemented a noise monitoring program, which is a measurement of noise levels at sensitive areas, performed noise modeling to develop noise contours, and recommended updates to the noise regulations. Noise sources identified were commercial establishments and entertainment districts with live music and crowd noise, sporting events, concerts, vehicular noise. Food trucks, interestingly enough, with the generator noise was something that was mentioned at the public meetings, and construction activity, of course. So the noise monitoring program, to start with, was we conducted measurements in April, May, and June of 2025 using modern sound level meters to measure the ambient and active noise levels. The reason for the ambient and active is to find out the background noise as opposed to event-related noise. These were predetermined locations throughout each focus area, and multiple meters were used for the simultaneous measurements. The graphic that you see there is an example of the channel side measurement areas, with the red triangles being the areas of measurement. And all this, like I said, is detailed in that document. The noise measurement focus areas that we identified were Thunder Alley, Sparkman Wharf, Soho, Raymond James Stadium, and Ybor City. The noise metrics captured included the LEQ, LMAX, L10, and L90, which are just different ways of looking at sound levels in order to assess what we're finding. The tabulated measurement results, this table is included in here not for anything other than to just kind of show you what was collected This is the Ybor City example, and different areas with along 7th Avenue and along 6th Avenue and along 5th Avenue. So just an example of what would be found in that document, and a lot of the different sound levels through LMAX, LAQ, L10, and L90, which tell us different things about the noise occurring at that time. The noise modeling and noise contours. Noise modeling was done to develop the noise contours, I should say, and that used the sound plan noise prediction model, which provides estimates of sound levels and accounts for the elevations of terrain features and intervening objects. The important part of it for this study as well is it computes a color contour map showing areas of equal or similar noise levels. We calculated the LAQ and the LMAX for each focus area and to develop the noise contours, which I'll show you in a minute. Those are the graphic visualization of the environment. We use the noise measurement results as the source data to create these contour maps, and field observations helped with the distinctive noise sources. This is an example of one of many contour maps that was created in Ybor City, and this is for the LMAX. And what this shows you is the different colors show the different levels that were measured, but it also shows where it travels throughout the neighborhoods. Different colors show the different levels, and with the hatching area being kind of the residential. So this kind of gives you an idea that it might be very loud at the source, but not necessarily as loud at the receiving property. So this is just a perfect example of what was shown in there. Sound plan can include the propagation path and also the buildings. Another example was the LAQ that was measured in the Soho area, and this shows sort of the same thing with the residential areas being in the hatching, and you can see where the noise sources are, with the red colors being the highest, and then it kind of travels throughout the neighborhood, but not consistent throughout the neighborhood due to buildings blocking it and the like. So the existing noise ordinance in Chapter 14 has a couple different areas that I'll touch on, with the designated entertainment areas being Ybor City and the Arena District. Those consider excessive noise measured from the property line of the noise source, and they have a daytime and a nighttime noise level threshold, which are 85 decibels and 65 decibels respectively, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. for nighttime, and 3 a.m. and 6 p.m. for the daytime. The difference between DBA and DBC is that the DBA noise level is what most closely approximate what the human ear can hear, and DBC measures more of a basic sound level, which can be important when creating a noise ordinance because of the fact that it travels through buildings and windows a little bit more. So that's why there's two different thresholds in this regulation. And more in the existing noise ordinances, all other areas of the city consider what's called an unreasonably loud and raucous or plainly audible nature of the sound at any time of the day, and between 10 and 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. is plainly audible a minimum of 100 feet from the property line of the noise source. So this is in the non-entertainment district areas. Also in this ordinance is excessive noise from a vehicle plainly audible at 50 feet. And then also it touches on placement of stationary loudspeakers. So continuing on with the existing noise ordinance, in a different chapter, chapter 27, is the limitation standards for noise from industrial, manufacturing, and processing operation. Excuse me. And this also provides a noise threshold, but it considers the excessive noise thresholds from the property receiving the noise, and that's at residential, commercial, and industrial land uses. So one of the other things that we did in this noise assessment is we compared noise ordinances throughout the United States and throughout Florida. And what we found was most ordinances in U.S. cities have maximum noise levels near 55 decibels daytime and 55 decibels nighttime for residential land use, which is considered the typical standard. All three Florida cities compared, which was Tampa, Orlando, and St. Petersburg, have higher higher limits than the typical allowable daytime standards throughout the U.S. All 3 Florida cities also, and Cincinnati, use a mixture of plainly audible and numeric instrumented metrics for identification of violations. Measurements near the source generating the noise is not a common variable within noise ordinances throughout the U.S., which is important to this study because of the fact that the current noise ordinance for the entertainment districts does use the from the noise source generating. And the reason for that is that most ordinances are developed for the purpose of protecting residential property from noise levels. So, with all that being said, we've developed some recommendations and suggestions for the city to consider. And the revisions to the current noise ordinances are meant to address the community concerns about noise, improve enforceability in some areas, and align Tampa's ordinance for consistency with comparable of U.S. cities. Suggested revisions are based on our noise measurement data, our modeled contours, and a comparison of similar cities throughout the U.S. So going to the recommendations and suggestions, the first recommendation is to extend the limitation standards at the receiving land uses for industrial, manufacturing, and processing operations to all sources of noise citywide. This is the Chapter 17 current ordinance. These noise level thresholds would then be consistent with the current EPC regulations. So currently, that Chapter 17 shows noise that's not, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? Not created from a residential source. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. It has limitation standards for noise from industrial, manufacturing, and processing operations. And so we recommend to extend that to all sources of noise citywide. The second recommendation would be to add numeric noise level thresholds received at the residential property line for noise within the designated entertainment districts. As I mentioned earlier, the current ordinance measures noise level from the source and not from the residential property line. And this would ensure consistency with the noise control efforts if you had both of those in the ordinance, from the source and at the receiving property. And the reasons for that is, as I showed earlier with the noise contours, not all properties are receiving the same level of noise due to intervening buildings and other terrain features. So the third recommendation is to mandate a 65 decibel noise threshold received at the residential property line for noise within designated entertainment districts between the 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. time period. This would be consistent with the range of reduction that we saw in the noise contours. Recommendation 4 would be to reduce the maximum noise level threshold from designated entertainment district property line between the hours of 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Instead of having the overall 6 p.m. to 3 a.m., which still maintains the 65 decibel noise level threshold received at the residential property line, as mentioned in recommendation 3. So part of this assessment actually went on to discuss some of the noise mitigation strategies that are available. There are 3 different types: the source control, path control, and receptor control, which essentially is mitigation strategies from the source or from the path from the source to the receptors, or actually at the receptors. And some of the things that can be done is to have a sound system tuning and limitation, structural materials, venues and speaker system design at the source. Path control would be noise barriers, which I think everybody is familiar with, and certainly acoustic fences. And then at the receptor, building insulation can be very helpful. Also, zoning and land use control to establish buffers between mixed-use residential and some commercial businesses. Some of the more technological tools that have developed in the last several years that might be worthwhile thinking about is the noise mitigation strategies. And I added this one for for an article that was use of the noise cameras, which are automated noise monitoring systems. There's also directional microphones. Sound cameras are something that is moving fast and technologically. And so essentially that is capturing noise levels without having staff on site. And then certainly public mobile apps and community engagement programs are other options for noise mitigation. So for a little bit of context, this is a quick summary of the historical Tampa noise ordinance from 2003 into 2016, confirmed the plainly audible. 2023 was the revision of the EPC ordinance, and then several different ordinances between 2016 and 2022 was a full rewrite, and then one that was repealed, and then in May 5th, 2022 removed the channel district. So lots of back and forth, which is not uncommon for cities of this size with all variable noise sources. And one of the things that we wanted to add here through correspondence with city staff was the enforcement challenges that have been experienced in Tampa in the past and led to some of the ordinance revisions. And as you can see and probably know already, the TPD officers have higher priority calls involving criminal activity to spend time on noise issues. Modern noise measurement devices may present operational measurement challenges for TPD officers that aren't trained. And noise measurements measured at the receiving property lines have historically proven challenging for admissible evidence in court. And then also identifying a specific source of offensive noise through measurements can be difficult in urban settings in order to identify the offending noise source. So with that being said, that's it. So if you have any questions.
I just have one quick question. Why 65 and not 55?
Sorry?
Decibels. You said advised was 65, but then you said most cities use 55?
That's daytime versus nighttime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so 65 would be more readily effective in the daytime because there's so much other ambient noise. At night, a lower noise level would be of benefit because you don't have as much traffic noise and all of the other things that make the overall sound level higher.
Would generally, I'm sorry, I'll go after you.
No, finish.
So would generally, in these areas that we've specifically discussed, the arena, Channel Side, Ybor City, South Howard, is the ambient level noise that was measured around there always over these thresholds?
No, it depends on the level that you're looking at. Like we talked about, the LMAX would be the highest level measured, and certainly that could be a loud car go by would your maximum. One of the more useful measurement items is an LEQ, and that's the equivalent noise level over a certain amount of time. So you may measure for 10 or 15 minutes or even 30 minutes straight, and you'll have a series of LMAX levels that are higher and then lower, but that gives you the LEQ. So what we tried to do when we measured at those areas, although they were different with Raymond James and Channel Side during the Lightning game, was we tried to do an ambient before the event and then also during the event. And most of what we found in those areas that were non-event related noise was not exceeding the current regulations. Some of the event noise was at certain times, but it all depended on where the measurement site was. And that's why we did it with the noise contours, so you could see kind of how it was separating out through the neighborhoods. And I hope that answered your question. Maybe I rambled on a bit.
Kind of. I'll come back with, I'll let it spin in my head for a few
Okay.
minutes. Councilwoman Hurtak, followed by Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I really appreciate this study and the recommendations. That's always the best part, especially when stuff that we don't fully understand completely, but do understand enough that we get constant complaints about noise, and that's why we asked for this study. So I really appreciate recommendations 3 and 4, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this really interesting idea of noise cameras. So if we were to use noise cameras, if, I don't know that there's anyone, oh, yes, Mr. Schmidt is here from TPD. So if we were to put noise cameras in, how many would we need in an entertainment area to say, let's just focus on Ybor. How many cameras would we need in an area like Ybor to ensure that folks in the residential areas are not, that the decibel levels are set to whatever we end up changing them to?
Sure. And so I can't give you a direct answer as to how many, because there's so many different versions of that technology that's ever changing. There are specific types of technology that can do just vehicle noise at intersections, especially loud intersections, or travel routes, or even a noise camera that's in the neighborhood that takes like an LEQ like we talked about before, that can give you a graph of how high the noise is versus how low it is. So the short answer to your question is I don't know how many, but there are a lot of options.
Okay, so that's something that we can talk to our TPD folks about. And I think my other question is, right now, and this might not be a question for you, but for staff, right now, how many entertainment district, like actual specified entertainment districts do we have?
Good afternoon, Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. Technically, by definition, we don't have any.
Oh, okay.
In chapter 14, Ybor City and the Arena District are pulled out to have different measurement terms. I believe HMMH used the term entertainment district because that's how they were describing them in their study. But technically, we don't have any, quote, entertainment districts at this point.
Oh, okay, so this, we could just simply do the noise citywide?
That's the purview of
Okay,
City
great,
Council.
thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your fine report. From what I read, I believe you also said that noise is measured at the point of, and then where it's received in the neighborhood. The one in the neighborhood evidently is not too well accepted by the courts.
That's correct. And so there's two different parts of the regulation. The noise in Chapter 27 that is created from industrial type is measured at the property line. All other noise that is in Chapter 14, which includes the entertainment districts that we talked about before, is measured from the noise source currently. And to confirm what you said is, yes, what we've heard from city staff is that that measurements from the property line are much more difficult in court as admissible evidence.
So that means we have a hard road ahead of us.
Historically, that is. I can't comment much on current.
Any recommendations on that?
I think that the technologies are advancing in noise measurements now, as we talked about with some cameras. I know that there are some places throughout the U.S. that are more successful with it. And so whether or not, that could include, violations and being admissible in court, I can't really comment on. I just know that a lot of that technology is changing, and so maybe that will help in future efforts.
Councilwoman Young.
Councilman Carlson was
Oh,
before.
Councilman Carlson.
You just want to go last, don't you?
No.
Oh, I don't think he's going to be last.
I was going to bring up the same thing that came up a minute ago, that there are no entertainment districts. I would appreciate, I don't know if we have to vote on it, but I'd appreciate if you strip that language out. It's the downtown, I would prefer to use downtown neighborhoods, Ybor neighborhoods. To my knowledge, Ybor City never stood up and said, we want to be an entertainment district. It was a philosophy at the time to allow kind of unlimited alcohol licenses, and now it's turning back into a community. Downtown certainly never agreed to have an entertainment district, but there's all kinds of stuff implied in there that places would have unlimited sound, and that's not what anybody who lives there agreed to. And the sound goes all the way to Harbor Island and Channel District, and the same thing with Howard Avenue. Howard Avenue for sure, because I was living along there, never said they wanted to be an entertainment district. The city council administration in the past allowed lots of liquor licenses along there, and we need to get control of it. A few years ago, I proposed and we agreed to ask the administration to look into creating a real entertainment district in Drew Park. Drew Park said no, and so we need to figure out how to have pockets of entertainment, but and one by one with alcohol license, we've been limiting so we don't allow outdoor amplified sound, but some of it's leaking out, and so we need to make sure we control that because we have people living throughout the city. We need entertainment. We want to have places where people can have fun, but it can't keep people awake all night, or if they work at night, it can't keep them awake all day either. And the other point that was brought up is the vehicles. We're getting a lot of complaints about these supercharged vehicles that make sounds, and I don't know if it's in the engine or if they have some kind of speaker that makes it make those sounds. But when people are racing on Bayshore and Gandy, I can hear it in my house, half a mile away. And so we need to make sure we get control of that. So thank you for your hard work on this, and anything we can do to make this better for the neighborhoods would be great. Thanks.
Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Well, no, that was actually going to be my point. One, thank you for the presentation. But I know one complaint that we get a lot at our office is specifically with the cars, particularly in like the downtown and channel side areas, because you have, the cars and the sound is like ricocheting off the buildings, and then you have the parking garages that are close to the buildings, to residential buildings. So how does that, how does that come into play when we're talking like with the noise study? Is there a second part that has to be done? Like I guess I'm kind of looking for how do we incorporate that, or what does that discussion look like? Because we get a lot of those calls, and some cars are made loud, but it's more so, the additions that are like added on cars to make them a little bit louder. And so that's that's a lot of the calls that we get, is just the noise for the cars.
Great question. And so that is a problem statewide and nationwide, and has become worse and worse. And I think some of the challenges are that it's very hard to measure because it's an instantaneous noise source. But as you mentioned, it bounces off of the hardscape in the buildings, and it travels through windows, and it's kind of that annoying type noise that really bothers the residents, as opposed to maybe a higher level kind of more consistent noise. And so to get back to another part of your question is that a lot of cities, not a lot, I should say a few cities, have developed noise ordinances that crack down on non-stock mufflers and engine components. As you mentioned, some cars are designed to be louder, but there's a lot of non-stock components, some of the mufflers that are created to sound like gunshots or different things that people will use while sitting in an intersection, can be very difficult for the residences in those areas. So to answer your question with more of my rambling, I think it's very difficult for TPD officers to enforce that because they can't be everywhere all the time. Potentially some of the new technologies might be able to help with that, with some of the camera technology and some of the noise identification technologies available.
Okay.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. So reading this here in the noise ordinance comparison, all three Florida cities compared have higher limits than the typical allowable daytime standards in the U.S. cities, correct?
Correct.
So we're already more lenient than a lot of other cities. I'm glad that, comments were made about Howard Avenue, for example. I've been here my whole life, and I remember how that used to be, 30-something years ago. Now it's crazy on a weekend night, whatever, on many nights. And there's residential right there. You go to the east off Howard, and it's houses. Ybor City, that's gone through a lot of changes, is coming back to that neighborhood. 7th Avenue, you go out there, you see how it is, and I'm glad that people go there and it's busy. However, there's a lot of homes around there. In regards to the vehicles, I can appreciate a good sports car with stock exhaust, whatever. But even leaving here a couple weeks ago, two people were racing, and a Mercedes and a BMW, and that crackling, backfiring. I mean, it sounds like gunshots, number one. Number two, the decibel level must be insane.
It is.
You know, now you had mentioned these sound cameras. So how would they work? Because people will say, you know, are they surveillance? Are they, you know, does it read their tags and then they get a notice? Explain that more.
So the answer can be all of the above. A sound camera essentially works like a microphone, but it'll create noise contours similar to what we created in our document. So it'll kind of show you, as you know, noise is limited based on distance and what's in the pathway. So the farther away you get from the offending noise, the less noise level it's going to be. But a sound camera can take essentially a picture with a microphone and identify how loud the noise is at the source at the time.
Is it activated at that moment when there's like that loud pop or crackle and then it takes an image, or is it 24/7?
It can be all of the above.
Because I think folks might have concerns with that 24/7 filming. If it's activated by, you know, above a certain decibel reading, and then I would assume, you tell me otherwise, that somebody examines, you know, each clip, each video clip to see what is what.
Yeah, the technology is advancing so quickly that honestly, I think there's many of those options, and I would assume, without being an expert on that, with the new AI technologies, that should be a much more automated situation than that might have been in the past.
Okay, and then last thing, Chapter 14, Article 3 of the city's Code of Ordinances regarding the existing noise ordinance, and it's already been mentioned, designated entertainment areas. Howard Avenue is a neighborhood that happened to flourish in the sense that you have a lot of bars and alcoholic beverage. Ybor City neighborhood, live, work, play. Historically, it's changed. It's changing again, but that whole they're not entertainment areas. You know, they just happen to have businesses that bring a crowd, and that's it. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
This is probably legal. Hello. We require your assistance at the podium, please.
Do you want me to step?
So basically, the study, you can stay, yeah. The study, it appears, is just for lack of a better word, a scientific description of what we already know. It's just a documented pamphlet of all the observations that we already know what's occurring. Jumping to the actual, which is the solution, the problem is source of noise, enforcement, and where the courts are on all of this. What's the solution? I mean, because Tampa PD doesn't want any part of this. In fact, I confirmed that with the mayor just during lunch today when I pulled her outside. The courts are deciding that you can't determine the source, if you can't determine the source based on this wide spectrum of noise, and just because, you detect the noise, but you can't prove in a court system the noise is generating at that location. You have to take the read at the location of where it's offensive, right, at the property. So now you've got this depth of space that trying to pinpoint where it's coming from, and where most of our noise complaints come from, except for the one-offs, where there's multiple sources of noise. South Howard, Ybor, Channelside, all these places. There's multiple venues. So I mean, what's the solution? So we've identified through this study that there is noise. What are we going to do about it?
There are, I will tell you.
Start with your name.
I'm sorry, Mike Schmid, Assistant City Attorney. I've been working on noise since 2013, so.
I suspect you'll retire working on this.
Unfortunately, all those changes you saw that were presented earlier, I'm familiar with all of them. Even back in 2003, when YCDC did a study and hired a noise consultant out of University of Florida to come to Ybor, part of the history has been, and how we got here is, back in 2003, when Ybor was experiencing a lot of noise issues and complaints, noise was actually measured from the center of the roadway on 7th Avenue, and code enforcement officers were trying to do it, as well as officers. And the problems were they weren't successfully able to identify the exact source because all the bars were playing music. So it's important to understand, I know that 85 looks like that's an incredibly high number, but what was changed was where you were measuring it from. So what was done in Ybor is we were allowed to measure directly at the source of the door so that we eliminated the issue of which bar that source was coming from. So in Ybor, you measure at the doorway, which means it needs to be a higher level, or otherwise you're gonna have, you're no longer measuring from the receiving property line. So you've got to understand that we're measuring at the doorway, which is why it's higher and it's not 65, because we're measuring literally at the doorway of the bar. So that was all done with a noise consultant way back in 2003. It's changed over the years, as you've seen over and over again, to where we're using plainly audible. And part of the main reason we've been using plainly audible is enforceability. Creating an ordinance that you can't enforce just doesn't help anybody. So that is the biggest thing, and you almost have to start there. So our recommendations, sorry to
No, it's good.
drag
Keep
on.
going.
Our recommendations a couple years ago were tweaks to the ordinance to make it more enforceable. That did pass city council. There were then individuals in Howard will say, came out, restaurants, bars, whatever, they came out and objected after it passed, and city council changed their mind and repealed that same ordinance that they had just passed. We still think those are viable options, and we still would recommend those options. Some of them were eliminating the 5-minute warning period that I saw in the recommendation from the Howard Avenue folks stated that was one of their recommendations as well. There are things that we could do to sort of tweak the ordinance overall, but wholesale going to decibel levels, we've been there. That wasn't very enforceable in the city, so we've gone to plainly audible over time in most of the areas of Tampa, except for areas where we are measuring literally from the doorway of the bars at Ybor, which has allowed us to enforce that still in Ybor. But overall, we have plainly audible for a reason.
Indulge me with two quick things. One, is it enforceable for the city of Tampa to pass an ordinance on the noise coming from vehicles? Or is that preempted by state?
No, great question. I was gonna say, there already is a no modified muffler law. Sometimes, as was mentioned, the difficulty is enforcing it by catching them.
I don't know, they're down 7th Avenue all day long, the police are standing right there, so.
Understood. So,
Yeah.
but there is currently a law, and in fact, this year in session, there was another law saying plainly audible. If you could hear a car, I think more than 25 feet, the law was proposed. I don't think that one got out of final committee, but I kind of need to go back and double check. It's not in effect yet, even if it had. It hasn't been signed.
Okay.
But I know the legislature is also considering this exact same issue. But
Okay.
there is currently a citation for modifying your muffler.
So do you think it would be appropriate for us to close this council session out, and not close the session out, just to ask you to come back with a list of recommendations that are enforceable under current law, of changes that we could make?
We'd be happy to.
Okay, Councilwoman Hurtak.
Along those lines of what we received from multiple neighborhoods, we got lots of great, very pointed suggestions from neighborhoods. One of the first ones was adopting a noise overlay that supersedes individual business site plans, and from my understanding, that would not be allowable. Am I correct, Mr. Cotton?
So this would, get up here. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. So this would be, the proposal would be if you already have, like, let's use South Howard, that already has alcohol site plans approved or old wet zonings, people would be proposing something on top of that?
Yeah. I don't think
know
that's
if that,
allowable.
that's a legal question,
Okay.
but I don't know if that's really that's something that we can answer right today without doing some research on. I don't.
Okay, so, well, I mean, obviously, we got these emails, they went mainly to city council, all of Tampa City Council, and so some of those should be viewable for you all, but if not, we'll make sure to share them, because some of these suggestions are great, about adding numeric dBA threshold at residential property lines, not only at the source, combine plainly audible and numerical decibel standards, do not choose between them. extend residential limits citywide. So, I mean, there's lots of different, but eliminate the 5-minute warning period was like in everybody's. So I think that's something that we could all agree on. And I am really interested in noise cameras, but also share Councilman Maniscalco's concern to make sure that if we were able to look at those, that they would be very specifically targeted and not something that would be, you know, could be used 24 hours a day, things like that. People are very concerned about privacy right now as well, which is, you know, valid.
And I do know companies,
Oh, I'm sorry, you got to start with your
I'm
name.
sorry, Mike Schmidt again, Assistant City Attorney. I do know noise companies have, you know, are out there advertising those things. We would need to identify the cost, obviously, too, and we'll come back to you once we identify all that information.
Yeah, and just some research behind it too, because my concern would be privacy issues. But thank you. This is really valuable information, and it sounds like this council is ready to make some decisions.
I was going
Thank
to say,
you.
does anybody have anything they really want to say, or are you ready to make some motions to move on? So
We need to hear from the public too.
But that's what I'm saying. Is there any, can we kill conversation now, or do
I just have one
more questions?
question.
Okay. So Councilman Miranda, Councilwoman Young, and then Councilman Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, Mr. Schmidt, I believe that you're 100% correct. It was measured right at the door of what the noise was coming from, and I think we had hearings on that, didn't we?
You did.
Back in 2007 or something like that.
Absolutely.
And that straightened that out pretty quickly, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
I think was tied up to the liquor license, that when you lose this, you're gonna lose everything. And that's what happened.
Yes, sir. That's
I
my understanding.
recall that, not vividly, but my mind come to it when he was mentioning about what happened.
Okay. Councilwoman Young?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Two, when you were talking about the path control measures, you had the noise barriers and acoustic fences, structural, earth, and vegetative. Can you talk to me about what that looks like with parking garages? Like using these methods, and I say that because, again, so for example, in Channelside, you have a residential and there's a parking garage right here next to it. And so that sound, when you're going either up or down the parking garage, is kind of, you know, going between the buildings into the residential. So can these strategies be used in the parking garages as well?
Absolutely. You're probably familiar with noise barriers. Everybody sees them along the interstate. FDOT installs them, which is a lot of the work that we do. But yes, there's a lot of different versions of what's called noise barriers. The ones you see along the interstate are big cement, expensive versions that work very well. And so certainly that would be an option, would be to put something in between the receptor, let's say the residential area, and the noise source, which would be the parking garage. However, there's also some more movable ones, like the fences, and acoustic blankets is another item that works sort of like a noise barrier, but is thinner, less expensive, and easier to move around. So absolutely, there's a lot of architectural noise mitigation options that could be used in a parking garage.
Thank you. Councilman Carlson, last question, then we'll move to public comment.
Yeah, along the lines of what Councilmember Miranda said, I think he was referring to the proposals by Yoli Capine, former city council member 10 or 15 years ago. She got all kinds of flack for it. But anybody who's interested in this subject, I encourage them to Google it and look at what she proposed. It had a carrot and a stick, but somehow we have to rein in the bad actors. And if something on a site plan and we can't change it, maybe there's a different innovative way that we can think about it with a carrot and a stick. The other thing I want to say just personally is that in 20 minutes I have to leave to go pick up my son. So I apologize to any members of the public. If I have to leave, I'll watch it from YouTube on the way out.
We're running long, so no guilt on you, because we should have been out by now. Okay, that concludes this portion. Now we're at public comment. If you wish to speak to this item, thank you. Please stand up on the wall. Start with your name, and once you say your name, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name's John McDonald. You might recall that I've been a guest here before regarding this.
Oh, you had it right the first time. Flip it. There you go.
So maybe, I'm sorry, that was the wrong slide. You might recall from this slide that when I was a young boy, I used to make my bicycles loud, right?
Yeah.
Baseball card.
Right. Well, it seems as though the youth or the elderly today want to do it with their cars, and that's illegal. I came here a couple years ago, spoke and met with Gwen, spoke and met with Councilwoman Young, shared everything I had researched. There's a group south of us, Collier County, your peers, law enforcement, got together and said, we got to do something about this. They have a noise task force. I came in here and gave you YouTube links to follow exactly what they're doing. I did the job of consultant. This report did not come forward with any recommendations. I don't think we should conclude that as a deliverable, saving the city money, paid $75,000 for it, until we get recommendations. These people are breaking laws left and right. I live and operate a business downtown. I guarantee you, before you go to bed tonight, you'll hear this. Everyone in here. Law enforcement on the beat knows a Toyota out of the manufacturer doesn't make that noise. If it goes by, you get in your car, you go over, you give them a $300 fine. That's what we are entitled to do to enforce it. We're not doing it. I'm asking you to please have conversation with law enforcement to go ahead and say, look, we're getting our ears filled, no pun intended, from your constituents, residents, and we've got the tools. We're already engaged. Legislation is already allowing you to do this. Collier County also sent a letter out in English and Spanish to every mechanic shop saying, don't do this because you're going to get a fine too. They put signs up at major thoroughfares. If you go to Palm Avenue down to the convention center, a car can hit that almost every light sometimes. If not, there's plenty of roadway, and I've been there when the police are standing there just like on 7th Avenue. And can you hear that? Yeah, I heard it. Why aren't you doing anything? Politely. Well, I'm here on a task force to negate speeding because we lost a person in an accident due to speeding. That's great. Then set up a second task force behind her watching speeding that says, let's get the noise knocked out. I think if we put a little pressure on, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Bay Shore, every couple of months, speed trap. Put some signs up, quote the ordinance. Bay Shore, or 7th Avenue has lit signs that says no cruising, no noise. Put it up. Give the law the reasonable actions to follow and say follow them, and now write citations. I don't think I'd appreciate a $300 fine and then a $600 one if, hey, muffler's still on your car. Here's $600 fine. I think it will hurt some of these people. And again,
Thank
you don't
very
need
much.
you don't
Thank
need
you.
technology or tools.
Thank you very much. Time's up. Thank
Thanks.
you. Next speaker, please. Start with your name. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Holly Nesda, and I've been a resident of Ridgewood Park in the Heights since 2015. I purchased my first home there as a single woman, and I share it today with my husband and 2.5-year-old daughter. We love the Heights and are committed to protecting the quiet community where countless families have moved and chosen to make it home. While I'm speaking about the noise issues in our neighborhood in the Heights, this concern extends beyond our neighborhood. It's a clear example of why Tampa's sound ordinance must be carefully preserved and enforced to protect the residents of the city. In the fall of 2025, Bird Armature Works began hosting electronic dance music concerts 3 nights a week, Thursday through Saturday. As advertised on their website, the events begin at 9 p.m. and continue until 3 o'clock in the morning. The venue is an outdoor, open-air balcony where they host world-class DJs with their new cutting-edge sound system. This is not an occasional permanent event. It is weekly, it's ongoing, and it's indefinite. The Heights is a long-established residential community where families have lived peacefully for decades. The bass from this new sound system is so intense that it can literally be heard and felt inside our home, and we live nearly a half a mile away. It's been disrupting our sleep and quality of life, and we cannot escape it. Over the past 6 months, our community has worked endlessly through every appropriate channel. We've spoken directly with management, ownership, contacted city council representatives, and worked closely with the Tampa Police Department. Officers have been inside our home on multiple occasions between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. wearing body cam footage and have documented that the music and bass are plainly audible, even from a half a mile away. Despite warnings, issued citations, the ruckus noise continues. The citations are now being contested in court, fines remain unpaid, and court dates are now being delayed. I'm very concerned about the proposed changes to the noise ordinance, or potential changes, removing the ability for our residents to be sworn complainants or requiring expensive sound meters for every violation would make enforcement even more difficult, virtually impossible. It would be very costly for the city, the taxpayers, and it would make it easier for well-funded businesses to challenge all of these violations in court. It is clearly becoming a David versus Goliath situation, but these businesses are not above the city's ordinances. The residents of the Heights, we were here first, and we actually live there. What we're asking of the businesses that chose to move into our neighborhood is simple. Be good neighbors and respect the people that call this area home. And what we're asking of all of you is to preserve a noise ordinance that protects the residents when businesses choose not to be neighborly. Because when these protections fail, the outcome is devastating. It's families like mine being pushed to consider leaving and selling our homes that we worked so hard to build and the places that we've
Thank you,
created
Helen.
our lives
Thank you.
and memories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Start with your name.
My name is Nick Carter. I live in Ridgewood Park. I've lived there for 6 years. I built a new home. I expected noise in the city. I went crazy on the insulation. You heard the sound consultant talk about some of the mitigating things you can do. I have insulation between every wall in my house, all the internal walls, between the ceilings, between first and second floor. And yet, I still hear the noise from M-Bird. I don't just hear it, I feel it. It just vibrates your whole body. We've just heard from city staff that there are no entertainment districts designated within Tampa. So when we look at the regulations, it says excessive noise if you can hear it between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., 100 feet from the property line, that's deemed to be excessive. I live 0.4 miles away from Armature Works. It's about 2,000 feet, obviously well within the 100 feet. Now, it talks about the property line. I don't know if that's very well defined. I don't know where legally the property line of Armature Works is. But if we extend all the way across the parcel that I believe they own, that straddles Palm and North Boulevard, that's still 400 feet away from my house, and I still feel it. So what we're asking the City Council to do is to enforce a noise ordinance. Let's make sure that it's, first of all, reasonable for everybody. We're not asking for businesses to be shut down. We're asking them to be good neighbors, to be considerate of the residences around them. But if they're not, then let's be able to enforce these regulations. Giving them a citation and a $50 fine is absolutely meaningless. You know, that's a round of shots at M-Bird, right? Let's make sure that we actually have some teeth in these regulations, so if they fail to adhere to them, that they shut them down. Secondarily, we got to be very cognizant that we don't put a burden on TPD. At the end of the day, if we're asking them to run around with decibel meters, there's a cost, there's training associated with that. And then you're always going to have the legal challenges around when was it calibrated, show me the source code. Think about all the municipalities and police forces that are unable to enforce DUI because attorneys are constantly challenging the source code and the calibration. Let's look after the City of Tampa residents. Please enforce any type of noise regulations to safeguard our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Ryan Nesda, and I have been a resident of the Heights since 2012. I represent a long-established residential community that has existed for decades. In recent years, entertainment venues and Armature Works have moved closer to our neighborhood. For a long time, this relationship felt balanced and mutually beneficial. However, in recent months, that balance has been broken down. An electronic dance music venue, M-Bird, now regularly disrupts our neighborhood's peace every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night until 3 a.m. This has significantly impacted my family's ability to rest and enjoy our home. As a physician serving the Tampa community, sleep is not a luxury, it is absolutely essential. Having my walls shake until 3 a.m. is simply unacceptable. Despite multiple good faith efforts to work directly with the business and its ownership, no meaningful change has occurred. My only recourse has been to involve the Tampa Police Department and rely on the current sound ordinance. While the process has been long and frustrating, it is beginning to produce tangible results. It is clear that meaningful change only happens when there are enforceable consequences. My concern moving forward is significant. The same ownership controls land extending from Armature Works to within a few hundred yards of my property line, and even closer to others in our neighborhood. Without strong safeguards, there is real risk of additional venues like M-Bird expanding further into our community. Their interests do not align with those of the residents who live here. The current sound ordinance provides residents and law enforcement with the necessary, or at least some of the necessary tools to address these issues. Weakening it or shifting power away from those directly impacted would be a disservice to communities like ours as entertainment venues continue to expand. In medicine, we often say, the enemy of good is better. In other words, when something is working, even if it is not perfect, attempting to improve it can sometimes make it worse. From a resident's perspective, I can say with confidence that changing the current ordinance will make conditions worse for our neighborhood. And not to steal from what you said earlier, but can we just turn down the damn music? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Joseph Caldwell. My wife and I, we live in the Ridgewood Park neighborhood. We're about 0.6 of a mile from M-Bird, and we moved into the neighborhood about 13 years ago before Armature Works was a thing and before M-Bird and things like that. But there were, we moved there to be close to activities. Rick's on the River's been there decades, probably longer than I've been alive. We hear them during the day. You hear them if you're outside. It's not audible in your home. It's never been a nuisance. It's something we kind of enjoy, just sitting out front, hearing the music from our front yards across the river. M-Bird moves in, and as much as I've been there, I enjoy the place, but we don't want to hear it till 2 or 3 in the morning. We're trying to sleep. This is an entertainment district. This is a home of single-family homes, townhomes. We're not in a vertical space. We're not in Ybor City on 7th Avenue. So we didn't move in there to be kept awake at night till 2 and 3 in the morning. And, everybody was talking about different noises like on Howard and Ybor. I have my real estate office in Ybor City. So my wife and I have advocated for Ybor since we moved here. It's been a place where people don't want to live because of the noise. A couple years ago, I bought a bunch of lots in Ybor on 5th Avenue, sold them, and there's $1 million homes being built, which we love to see. But when we're trying to rent other people properties in there, all they talk about is the noise, the people that come there. It's not a community as it was maybe, 40, 50, 60 years ago. It was a great community. And so hopefully it's coming back to that. But just bringing that back to our neighborhood in Ridgewood, we want to work with them. They should work with us. We were there first. And we just appreciate that we have some sort of plan in action that it doesn't go to 3 in the morning or the bass isn't so loud. We don't want them chased out, but we should be able to work together. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is anybody else in the public who wishes to speak to this item? Okay, very good. Public comment. Adam, did you want to speak? Oh, is somebody online for this one? Oh, sure. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get Adam up and then we'll do the 2 online.
So, can we bring the presentation back up?
Say your name, please.
Adam Harden.
And what do you need from the presentation?
The last 2 pages.
Are we able to do that, CTTV?
So, to use my 3 minutes here efficiently, I'm concerned. I think everybody agrees that we need an enforceable ordinance, one that represents the fact that we're a big city, that we've got, 5 major master plan unit developments in the urban core: Midtown, Heights, Ybor Harbor, Water Street, Channel Side. And the city, these are zoned for vertically integrated mixed use. And, the concerning thing here is that I feel like the facts are being misrepresented to you, that you need to drill down harder on things that Mike's saying to you because they don't ring true to me. I think that an interesting thing to ask Mike about would be why Hillsborough County's ordinance, EPC's rule was found to be unenforceable due to vagueness several years ago, and they went through a 2-year rulemaking process and ended up with a decibel-based ordinance, whereas he's telling you it's not enforceable, but in fact, the plainly audible, reasonable person standard is what's going to be unenforceable, right? So, look, I'm the landlord of the Irish Pub, and I'm the landlord of the 2 apartments on top of it, right? Has 6 by 9 speakers under the awning. You know, we could see house, you know, was near us. The front porch is down the street from your house, Lynn. You know, plainly audible isn't a big city standard. You know, even Deerfield Beach, and we can get the consultant back up here perhaps to tell us about this, just passed a new decibel-based standard. And they went through similar machinations here. You know, additionally concerning is, you know, I came to this council when you were attempting to rejigger the ordinance twice. I brought what I felt like was a blue chip, you know, offer for a ad hoc committee to study this, a sunshine committee. It included 3 neighborhood presidents, the land use person, including North Hyde Park, right, Ybor, and Tampa Heights. It had the land use person from Seminole Heights, a local land use attorney who's worked on issues like this previously, and you know, instead we kicked the can, right?
Pause your time for 1 second. The presentation is up. If you want to quickly go to the last 2 slides, there should be a clicker there, and they'll bring it up on the top of the screen.
So again, you know, you have a study, and I think if you read it in depth, that the initial recommendations differ slightly from what was altered at the direction of Mike. And so that, you know, you're basically having this rammed down your throat instead of having him return and actually support some of the statements he's made related to, okay, can we go to the last page?
There's a clicker there, you can click that.
Oh, sorry.
I'll give you 10 more seconds to repeat. Or not.
Well, suffice it to say,
Okay.
on the last page,
Wrap it
he's
up.
basically represented to you that plainly audible is the only enforceable standard, and this, in my opinion, is the exact opposite of the truth,
Thank you.
legally speaking.
Thank you so much. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, now we have 2 online speakers that are registered, and they would be, let's see here. Kathy,
Yes.
go ahead. Start with your
Okay,
name,
good
please.
afternoon, Council. Kathy Francoeur. I'm speaking specifically for the Soho area. And I'll mention a few bullet points for the key problems and then some possible proposed solutions. So first, South Howard is actually designated as a commercial overlay district, which by definition is for development to be compatible with surrounding residential neighborhoods. And it's currently not in compliance with that purpose. Excessive music is a constant disruption to nearby homes, affecting the quality of life for residents. I mean, we've lost a lot of longtime great neighbors who've just chosen to leave because they got tired of fighting the noise and the lack of resolution. Bars are not containing their music within their own venue. It's compounding. We have multiple places amplifying music into the street, all at the same time to attract customers. This is preventable. Enforcement is very inconsistent. The loud music in Soho is treated as normal now, which pretty much lowers the standard for action. It's reactive. You know, officers waiting for a complaint to come in when they're standing in the midst of this outrageous music, allowing residents to be disturbed in the first place and woken up, rather than controlling it before it gets to that point. I mean, shouldn't that be the goal, right? Bass is a big issue. Even when music itself is not necessarily bothersome, bass vibrates through walls and doors. And often it's underestimated during the enforcement. Turn down the overall noise and the bass goes with it. One key is the bars have 0 restrictions at all right now. So they're not voluntarily willing to be good neighbors. There's no real consequences, and citations are almost null and void. And lastly, when you have unregulated noise like that, it contributes to a more chaotic environment on Howard, and it escalates behavior in the forms of fights, shootings, and the like, and negatively impacts our area. So proposed solutions: assign a dedicated noise control officer on the weekends, focusing enforcement at the source of the noise with the goal of preventing disturbances before residents are woken. Yes, 5-minute warning has to go away, issue citations and real consequences to create accountability. And we request set hours for allowed outdoor amplified music. But if set hours cannot be established, please implement stricter enforcement standards for Soho. Again, Councilman Hurtak mentioned a lot of good points. We sent out an email to a good portion of people in the city. So I encourage you to take a look at that and really consider some of the other proposed requests
Thank
that
you,
we're
Kathy.
requesting. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next online speaker is Virginia Crabtree. Virginia, are you on? What's that? Your audio is off. Does that mean she can't hear me? Virginia, you can see me. Turn up the volume. No pun intended. Virginia, unmute. Give it 10, 9, 8, 7.
See if you can figure it out while Mr. McLean.
We moved past Mr. McLean. Did you want to speak?
Yes, sir. I came in just as Adam was leaving.
I called Adam as the last one, but since Lynn specifically requested you, I will allow you to do that. Mr. Michelini, approach the podium and start with your name.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Steve Michelini. I think the main issue is make sure that whatever changes you make, that they can be achieved. It doesn't make any sense, especially in the South Howard District, where you have residences within 50 feet of the commercial establishments. And the commercial establishments, and many of them, came before the residences came. And I'm not saying that's an excuse, but when you have that close proximity, you have to provide some kind of allowances for that. And I do take exception to a couple of the statements that the previous speaker made, but I agree with you that, probably there needs to be some reasonable, achievable standards to be set. But just be careful to make sure that, that doesn't make everyone that's there make them in violation. So if you wanted to assign somebody out there to be, a dedicated officer, that's fine. But I think you have to remember there's probably 20 police officers out there every weekend anyway. And I know that TPD doesn't want to be the enforcement arm for this provision. They've got bigger things to deal with. But to say that noise has caused shootings and violence, and that it just doesn't make sense. But reasonable, achievable standards, I'm agreeing with 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McElhaney. Okay, Virginia, let's just go one more time. Virginia, are you able to hear me? She's gone. Okay, very good. That concludes public comment. Council. Charlie, Councilman Miranda.
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
So for me, I have some points that I thought that the public brought up really well, but just overall, what I would like to have staff bring back, and I just want to throw this out before I make a motion just to talk. I would like something that focuses on being proactive versus reactive. I think that the folks who talked made a really good point that we should not have to be calling at midnight. Let's try to find a proactive stance on this. So what can we do proactively? Obviously, we're going to still have reaction, so I would like a little bit of both, but obviously focusing on the proactive so that by the time we react, we have something that we've thought about. The second is SB 180. I'm concerned because Chapter 27, Senate Bill 180 was put in after the hurricanes, and what that did was to prevent cities from making redevelopment more difficult. Unfortunately, they didn't limit it to development. So for example, I put a ordinance through that would have that required private parking lot owners in Ybor to have armed guards. Okay, that has nothing to do with development, but because it was put in during the time frame of SB 180, we had to pull that out. That was solely a security issue that TPD wanted, and so that was done. So the SB 180 provisions stay in until June of 2027. So by asking about that, we need to find out what kinds of things can we do pre-June 27? What could we do post-27? So looking at SB 180 as part of this. I keep hearing focused enforcement and a noise task force. I know the mayor said, you said the mayor doesn't, I wasn't really clear on that, but I do believe we need a strategy for that. Focused enforcement, whether it be a noise task force or something, because that's kind of what we're hearing. And then I heard the difference between audible versus DBA. I really want to hear more specifics on that, because to me, the audible is what I was told was the best to stand up in court. So I'm confused now. So those are the things that I heard. I mean, is there anything else that anybody else heard that we want to make a motion? And by the way, I'm thinking to have this come back with some very specific ideas in June. Whether we want it to be during the June City Council session on the 18th or during the workshop session on the 25th is up to us. But that was what I saw was available. So I have the gavel. Yes, Chair Clendenin.
Okay, I'm gonna make 3 suggestions, and it's kind of incorporates what you, but maybe solidifies this down a bit.
Okay.
One, I'd request that Tampa PD prepare a plan and an implementation plan to enforce vehicle noise, and initially focus on 7th Avenue, South Howard, Swan/Hyde Park area, and Palm Avenue between North Boulevard and Florida. This is just a test area, and have that plan done within 90 days for at least a 90-day test run to see how that works. Channel side too? Okay, yes, channel side, yeah. Okay, and include channel side. Okay.
I like that idea, but I think that if you're doing a pilot, in my opinion, if you put it in one spot and you try multiple things.
Well, I think this is just, we're talking about those vehicle noise, which we've already determined is illegal. And so that the PD, we're asking, council is asking PD to
I see, to enforce in those 5 areas. Okay, yeah.
So a plan within 90, and then at least a 90-day run to see how it works, okay?
Okay, so that's a motion. Do we want to do that as a separate motion?
Sure.
Okay, so I have a motion from Chair Clendenin. I have a second from Council Member Miranda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye, yes.
Okay. Number 2 is I would like to have legal staff return to council. I have to figure out a date, I didn't say, to see if we could pass an ordinance making it illegal in the city of Tampa for businesses to modify vehicles, for the noise modifications of vehicles.
That might be a state issue.
But can we regulate the vehicle modifications within the city of Tampa?
Well,
you can give me a thumbs up or a thumb down.
Okay.
You don't know. Okay, so come back and let us know whether we can.
But see, that's why I'm thinking this June 25th, if we come back with a bunch of questions.
But at least let me know what you got. So they could come back on June 20th. What's the council meeting? I think we should do this at council meeting.
18th is council.
So June 18th for a council meeting, so that they could come back on June 18th to let us know whether we can make a ordinance prohibiting vehicles from making vehicle modifications for the purpose of illegally producing noise.
Okay, I have a motion from Chair Clendenin. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. I would like to make a friendly amendment to look at. The gentleman who came spoke about a specific county. Does anyone?
Collier.
So specifically to look at Collier County's ordinance. Right. So I think if can we tie that in?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I accept that friendly
amendment. Mr. Shelby.
Yeah, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I wonder if this would be suitable for a written ordinance, a written response rather than an appearance. What is it you'd like?
You know, I don't think it's gonna be that long of a discussion, so I think if we come back, because we're gonna have this discussion, so I think it provokes, maybe come back with written, we can always change it across staff.
So this is why I really think should be June 25th, because I do think that ultimately we're gonna have a lot to talk about, and I really, but if you want to do it,
we can't pass an ordinance on the.
You're right.
You won't have it.
But we're not going to pass an ordinance on the 18th either.
You won't have
if
an
he
ordinance.
brings it to us, we will.
No, you won't. Actually,
no.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Shelby's.
You know, you always tell me all the stuff I can do. I can't do. You need to come to me and tell me all the wonderful things I'm allowed to do.
You
He always tells me I can't do things all the time.
It's like mom.
So I have
No,
I have a
no.
motion, so do you want to keep it the 18th?
No, we can take it to the workshop.
Okay, so I have a motion from Chair Clendenin to bring that motion back on June 25th. I have a second from Councilman Miranda, finding out, so do you want a draft ordinance to work from?
Well, I think if they feel like they can do it, but
Okay.
if they feel like they do it, or bring back the explanation, so, yeah. Whatever
If I
makes you
can,
happy.
if I can, I would suggest that to come back with a draft ordinance before you know whether you can, I think would be asking a lot for that, because it's still a threshold discussion that you're going to have to direct him to do
Okay.
that.
We'll listen to the lawyer for once.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. And lastly, I would like them on that workshop meeting again on June
5th.
June 5th. 25th, to come back to council, legal staff to come back to council, to present suggestions for enforceable ordinance changes on noise. Enforceable ordinance changes on noise.
On chapter 27?
Yes.
Excuse me, may I ask? Is it possible?
I have a
to-
second from Councilman Miranda. Okay, now.
Is
Mr.
it
Shelby?
possible to also ask him to consider if it's more appropriate for chapter 14, so you'd be able, maybe have a better spectrum? I don't know
Oh,
whether it needs to
yeah.
be just combined to
Eric,
27.
what do you think about that, 14?
Well, no, I just
That's a
wanted
question
to,
for,
Eric Cotton, Development Coordinator, I wanted to make sure the noise right now is in chapter 14.
That's
Chapter
right.
27 is the
Awesome.
zoning regulations.
Okay.
Good to know.
So-
Okay.
I just wanted to make that, so any changes to chapter 14 go through their own process, not the same as the
Okay,
typical two
strike
cycles.
27, insert 14.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it.
So I have a motion from Chair Clendenin, and again, you're talking about making what modifications to chapter 14?
Enforceable, I want legal staff to return to present to council proposed enforceable rule changes to the ordinance. 14.
Can
Noise.
I make a friendly
Please do,
amendment
please
to
do.
deal with audible versus DBA?
I think that's all part of whether it's enforceable or not.
I know,
mean,
but that's what I'm saying, specifically, because we've gotten comments from the
But not
neighbors in both
But
directions.
not
so-
inclusive.
Not inclusive, but
exclusive, yeah.
but we wanna do whatever is most permissive.
And
So-
what's ever enforceable.
Okay, great. So I have a motion from Chair Clendenin. I have a second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
No, just discussion.
And when is that?
And that's gonna be the workshop, right?
Yeah,
It's
workshop, okay. June 25th.
25th, okay. Do you want me to take it back or are you good?
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Councilwoman Young.
So I would like to have, I don't know which department it would be, but either mobility or planning to come back to council with acoustic design standards for new and existing operators, particularly those within feet of residential towers. And I say that because we have, again, parking garages that are near some of the residential buildings. And so, and we also heard of some, barriers and things that could be used. So I would like to see, in theory, what that could look like.
Probably new, because I don't know if we can force them to retrofit.
Well, I mean, if they can come back and tell if it's new or existing, but yeah, and I don't know, would that, I guess it'd be mobility and planning, I don't know, one of those. I said
Just
both.
say staff,
Oh,
and they'll
staff.
figure it out.
Okay.
So we have a
So
motion
staff.
from Councilwoman Young, a second from Councilman Miranda. Any
Mhm.
further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Councilwoman Hurtak.
And so I guess I'll just wrap up the others. I would like staff, as part of this, and does somebody just want to take this over? I mean, you've been working a lot on noise, does anybody want to move this forward as I'm doing?
To be able to track it.
Yeah, I'm doing the trees. I'm combining it all. Does anybody want to take noise?
I think Councilwoman Young sounds like she wants
Well,
to
I
take
mean,
noise.
just because you've been getting,
Yeah.
you sound.
Well, and she's downtown, she's
I was gonna
Ybor,
say, you're the
she's-
one that's already seems. Okay, so. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put a few motions and then let your office kind of figure it out. I do want to have I would like staff to come back with some proactive, and whether that be legislative, maybe that is your answer. So if it is, it is. But but what proactive things can we do to help make the noise, to make our noise ordinance stronger? Apparently, we need to look at Collier County, so I'd like to do that. So that's
That's what that one letter did, so you can just, for clarification, that was the legals have to come back with suggestions.
It's part of yours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
suggestions, okay, well, I specifically wanted proactive, but that's fine. And then you focused enforcement was in that too?
Enforcement was just on the vehicle stuff is what I do for enforcement.
Yeah, I wanted.
Vehicle noises.
Yeah, I wanted, something similar for actual noise complaints. So he's handling the proactive, so I do want to look at the reactive. What can we do? Is there a way we can have focused enforcement on noise? Whether that be a small task force that divides their time between and I don't want to specify areas because areas can change all over the city over years. So can we what would it look like to have a reactive team that focuses on noise? And one of the neighborhood people made a really good point that team should not include any of the officers who on overtime actually work for clubs or those types of areas, because that's a conflict of interest. So what, and maybe that's part of the rules. So that's my motion is a focused enforcement reactive suggestions.
So basically, remember what I've had, request the Tampa PD prepare and implement
But that was-
a plan to enforce.
You wanted vehicle
No,
noise.
but
I
I'm
don't
saying,
want vehicle-
take the vehicle out and put your
Okay,
noise.
so,
Request Tampa PD
for
to
Tampa
prepare
PD
and
to prepare
implement
and implement
a
a
plan
plan
to-
to enforce, noise.
Ambient noise.
Ambient noise. Through, and like I said, you had
Yeah,
it specific,
exactly.
I did not want to make it specified.
Yeah, so just period.
No, a task force, just like what would that look like, what would they do? So.
Okay, we have a motion.
And to come back also on June 25th with this.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Hurtak, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there anything else?
I'll hold my motion.
Okay, Mr. Shelby?
Just a question, did that, Councilwoman Hurtak, does that include the technological issues, for instance, the microphone type things that were discussed by the consultant?
Yeah.
It does, that,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for,
when you say task force, that it would include also the
well,
technology?
my motion was request for Tampa PD to prepare a plan to enforce. So yes,
Non-exclusive.
non-exclusive. So if they think that that's a strategy they'd like to look at, then we can look at it.
What do they refer to as, sound cameras? What's the?
Noise cameras.
Noise cameras.
I question if that ends up being the same problem. How
Yeah,
does it
that's-
identify the source?
That's what I worry about. So anyway.
But it's worth looking at just in case. I mean, AI could do anything, right? It's gonna replace lawyers here before you know it. I'm counting down the days.
AI doesn't allow, AI doesn't allow itself to be abused.
Okay, that concludes our regularly scheduled program. We're in new business. Councilwoman Young? Well, let's see if we might be able to zip through it.
So I think everyone should have gotten the memo I sent regarding the honorary naming of Frank Reddick.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so just putting that, just want to be sure that everybody received that memo.
So is that going to be set on an agenda?
Yeah, when are you gonna make a motion on it?
So I'm gonna make the motion on May 7th.
Okay, very good. So we'll anticipate that motion on May 7th.
Yes.
Okay? Very good, well taken. Anything else? That's it? Councilwoman Hurtak?
Yes, the ATU is not going to be ready to choose an employee of the month until June, so I move to remove ATU Local 1464 Employee of the Month and rescheduled ATU Local 1464 Employee of the Month from the May 7th 2026 agenda. Our next ATU Employee Award will be on June 4th, 2026.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Hurtak, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Anything else? No. Councilman Maniscalco?
These 12 commendations to me? I'm kidding.
If nominated, I refuse to accept it.
Okay, no, just one. I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation off-site to John Bell from the Tampa Theater in recognition of his retirement from the Tampa Theater at a date to be determined. I believe it'll be end of June, around there, but off-site.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco to recognize a very worthy man. A second from Councilwoman Hurtak. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Is that it? Councilman Miranda.
I have a few since Mr. Rivera's not here. We had a very successful week, meaning the Heights, Tampa, or West Tampa Heights. I did a fantastic cleanup all through the area, and I want to give them a commendation along with 9 students from Tampa Catholic who participated in the cleanup and making the cleanup. They did a wonderful job. And then the teacher at Tampa Catholic who gave the students the authority to go out and do this and coordinated the thing. And I'll do them, I'm just going to pass them now, but I'll do them at a later date. Maybe they're going to come here, I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
And then one more for the retirement of Jeff Patterson for 40 years at Channel 8, who retired as one of the longest serving individuals in TV.
On the first one, we have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco for the first commendation, a second from? I'm sorry, Councilman Miranda. I can't tell the difference
I
anymore.
know. We look alike.
Yeah. So it's first from Miranda, second from Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
And I promise I won't take over Mr. Vieira's position.
And on the second one, a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Okay. Hold on one second. On, for the, well, you know,
Oh,
I don't even know
I
if this
thought
is
it was a
business.
motion.
Because I think we could do the motion tonight for, or because I'll give you the time from now to then to think about it. This is from our wonderful budget analyst. Remember that August 3rd is our workshop on general funds. August 10th is our workshop on enterprise funds. And August 17th is our workshop on stormwater mobility. Mondays. All of them are on Mondays. The only question outstanding is time certain, what time we start. Well, I think some of them need to be days, some of them need to be nights. Tonight, when we join together in harmony again this evening, please, if you have any conflicts, think about, I think obviously probably the general fund or maybe stormwater definitely need to be at night, one of those two maybe, and then the other two could be day, but think about that. Anyway, so I will bring that back, or somebody will bring that back tonight to set the time.
Yeah.
So let's just plan on that this evening.
If I can, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shelby.
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Just so for the purposes of your calendar, just a reminder that the week, the second week in August, is that the 10th, you said?
The 10th, yes.
There is no meeting on that Thursday. That
Right.
is because of the League of Cities.
Yes.
So I just want to let you know that that would be one day.
Yeah,
Well,
so
if-
I would recommend enterprise be during the day and maybe the others at night.
Okay, think about that, come back tonight, and if anybody wants to make any changes to that, let me know. We'll have that discussion tonight. If I hear nothing else, can I get a motion to receive and file? Motion from Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilwoman Hurtak. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. I will see you all at 5:01 p.m. at beautiful historic City Hall in the city of Tampa, Florida. Don't be late.